Yesterday, there was an announcement that Warner Brothers is going back to the well and they're going to make another Middle Earth movie. And this time, it's going to be called The Hunt for Gollum. I usually don't like to speculate this early, but look, I had to. The Hunt for Gollum, let's talk about it. So it was announced yesterday on an earnings call. David Zaslav said, yes, we're making another Lord of the Rings movie. It's going to be called The Hunt for Gollum. It's going to be produced by Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, Philippa Boyens, and it's going to be directed by Andy Serkis. And of course, Andy Serkis is back playing Gollum. I knew that more Middle-earth stuff was coming. I just didn't know it was going to be this fast of a turnaround. I mean, it's 2024 as of the making of this video. It's May 10th. And this is supposed to come out by the end of 2026. That seems to be a very, very, very quick turnaround. And this is what it says in the article. Early stages of script development. Early stages. But anyway, it's going to be written by Fran Walsh, Philippa Boyens, and along with Phoebe Giddens and Artie Papageorgiou. I'm guessing is how you say his name. I can't remember exactly. There was a really neat interview over on Nerd of the Rings, which will be linked down in the description, talking with Philippa Boyens. I'm just going to say Phoebe and Artie, talking about the War of the Rohirrim, which is I guess it's an animated film. I'm guessing it's going to be more anime styled, directed by Kenji Kamiyama. That's coming out December 13th of this year. So we have that to look forward to. Of course, we haven't seen anything from this yet. So, quick turnarounds for everything, apparently. Now, when it comes to the adaptations between the books and the movies play it pretty loose, okay? That's just the way it is. But I have read Lord of the Rings multiple times. I've read the history of Middle-earth. A lot of this stuff I've already read. I haven't read all of the stuff about the larger legendarium, as they call it. And I'm by no means like an expert on all this stuff, but I did want to talk about the story beats that should be present in this movie, or at least kind of give us an idea of where the story's going. Now, over on the Lord of the Rings wiki, I took some information from that, and I'll also leave that in the description if you want to read it yourself. There's some interesting things about that period between The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings when Gollum loses the ring, and then when we pick up with his story again, basically in the Two Towers, what happens in that time period? How long is it? What's it all about? Let's talk about that. So this is what it says. Gollum eventually left the Misty Mountains and pursued Bilbo a few years later, but the trail was cold. Okay? He made his way south to Mordor, where all evil was being drawn at the time, including him, because that's the whole point, right? The ring sort of infected him, with his years and years of being attached to it. The ring sort of, in a way, sort of bled that power into him. So, of course, he was drawn to Mordor along with all of the other evil in Middle-earth. So, yeah, there's that. Discovering the secret stairs of Cirith Ungol, which we saw in Lord of the Rings, located near Minas Morgul, and surviving an encounter with Shelob. Now, are we going to see Shelob? I don't know. Are we going to see the stairs? Are we going to see Cirith Ungol? I mean, what exactly are we going to see? Not really sure yet. He was captured on his return, taken to the dungeons of Barad-dûr, and forced to reveal to Sauron under intense torture what he knew about the ring. We saw that. We saw glimpses of that in Lord of the Rings, when he says Shire, Baggins, all that kind of thing. Gollum was then freed, as Sauron had learned all he needed from him and sensed he might draw out the ring. So this is some interesting stuff. Like, the hunt for Gollum doesn't just mean like Gandalf and Aragorn trying to figure out what's going on. It could be that he's being pursued by, the orcs and all that stuff. I think that could make for some interesting stuff. He was then subsequently caught by Aragorn, then interrogated by Gandalf, who placed him in the care of the Sylvan elves living in Thranduil's kingdom in Mirkwood. So yeah, we could see Mirkwood again. We could see Thranduil, which is Lee Pace. We could see Legolas again, possibly. Orlando Bloom. I'm not sure. Then it says, assisted by orcs, he escaped them and set off looking for the Shire. So there's going to be some interesting stuff there. Is there going to be some big battles to be fought and all that kind of stuff? Not sure. I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see this all play out. Then it says he passed through Moria but could not make it out of the doors of Durin. And of course, we've seen Moria before. We've seen the doors of Durin before. So all of this stuff could come up again. Stuff we've seen in Lord of the Rings, and basically seeing the beginning of Lord of the Rings from Gollum's point of view could be kind of interesting. It says because he wasn't able to make it out of the doors of Durin, seemingly he then just waited there until he got lucky when the Fellowship of the Ring passed through. In Fellowship of the Ring, Gandalf says he's been following us for 3 days. So, how long were they in Moria? Pretty long time. A few days. Multiple days, I would say. So yeah, this matches pretty well with the writings. But then it gets a little strange. The movie plays really fast and loose with timing, okay? And that's just the way that movies work, right? You don't want to... You'll see when I get there. So, Bilbo's party, his 111th birthday, the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring, right? That takes place in the Third Age, the year 3001. Now, what's funny is, at that point, Aragorn begins the search for Gollum at the request of Gandalf. Okay, so as soon as the party's over, pretty much, Gandalf's like, hey, we got to find this Gollum character, right? 3017. So 16 years later, he finally captures Gollum at the Dead Marshes. So in the movie, Gandalf gives Frodo the ring, the night that Bilbo leaves, and he's like, yeah, just keep it secret, keep it safe, right? Sure. Gandalf leaves, goes to Minas Tirith for an amount of time. We don't really see how long. Then, it switches over to showing, Frodo and the boys partying, and then he goes home, and at that point, Gandalf shows up. Here, in the book, in the appendices, it's 16 years later. So, February 1st, 3017, Aragorn finally captures Gollum in the Dead Marshes. So, 16 years passes between when Bilbo leaves the Shire and when Aragorn catches Gollum. And then, on March 21st, so it says that Gandalf, questioned Gollum. We're talking a month and a half. A month and a half, he's taking care of Gollum. And he's talking to Gollum and getting Gollum's story. March 21st, Aragorn delivers Gollum to King Thranduil at the Woodland Realm to be held captive. And then, it's a whole year and a half later when Frodo leaves the Shire on September 23rd, 3018. So, you're talking 17 years between when Bilbo leaves and when Frodo leaves. And in the movie, it takes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes? It's a pretty short amount of time. So because of the way that the movies deal with the timing of all that, this really could be the story going way back 50 years, 61 years, I believe, right? Because Bilbo is 50 when he gets back from his travels, in The Hobbit. I think 50 or 51. So you're looking at about 60 years before all of the events of Lord of the Rings happen. So in those 60 years, we could follow Gollum through that whole 60-year period. But it's interesting. It's interesting to see, okay, so that's what the books say. What are they going to do in the movie? I'm not sure. It's kind of exciting, because it could be something really, really cool. And I would like to think that since Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens are involved, that they have a story that they want to tell. But it also could be just Warner Brothers saying, hey, give us another thing. Give us another Lord of the Rings thing. Yeah, what is it? Oh, I don't care. Just get it out there. Do a thing. So, how excited can we be? Moderately excited. I've got a little bit of trepidation here, because, you don't want to dilute the power of the Lord of the Rings. Some might say, well, The Hobbit and Rings of Power, which is Amazon, those things have already done that. So, why not, right? I don't know. I'm interested. There's a lot of trepidation though. We had that game that came out last year too, And apparently nobody cared about that. So, yeah. And I don't know. I mean, this could be more Aragorn Gandalf centric than Gollum centric. But then who are we going to get to play them? Of course, it's a given. Andy Serkis would be playing Gollum. His motion capture work over the years has just been insane. Of course, the Planet of the Apes movies. He's great. And he's a really good actor. When he's actually on screen, he's good. He's a really good actor across the board. He's going to be directing and helping to produce this movie. But what do you do with Aragorn? Vigo looks much older now. I mean, I don't know if you've seen him, but I don't know if he could play, you know, a role that where he looks the same as he did in Lord of the Rings. I mean, that was 23 years ago, which is crazy to think. But yeah, 23 years ago, Vigo played that part. Can he play that part again and look that way? I'm not sure. So who do you cast? Who do you cast as a young Aragorn, where, you know, in the books, it was only a couple of years before Lord of the Rings when he actually captures Gollum. But this is called The Hunt for Gollum. So you would think that it would probably take place prior. I'm not sure. I don't know who they're going to get. I mean, I did watch a video where one mentioned Timothée Chalamet. Now look, I'll be honest with you. I love Timothée Chalamet. I think he's amazing, and he's one of the hottest stars to come out of the last 4, 5, 6 years. I mean, the guy is good. I don't know if he can play this kind of role though. It just doesn't seem like a kind of role for him. So I don't know. I would be very interested to see what people think about, you know, where is this going to actually take place? This is definitely a prequel to Lord of the Rings, in between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, but how young do they go? I mean, Aragorn is 87 years old at the beginning of Lord of the Rings. So there's a good possibility that, you know, they could get a younger character to play a 40 or 50-year-old Dunedain. And then there's Gandalf. And this is where it can get a little, I mean, look, let's just be honest. Ian McKellen is going to turn 85 this year. Can he play this role again? Does he want to play this role again? And if so, who do you get? Because the whole thing is that, you know, at this point, Gandalf is like 2,000 years old. I mean, he's an Astari, right? He's one of the Maiar. So yeah, what do you do? Because you kind of need Ian McKellen. It's going to be interesting. Of course, you're going to have other characters. You're going to have Thranduil in there. I would assume Lee Pace. They could probably get him back. Orlando Bloom. I mean, Legolas doesn't have to be in the story, but since they're going to Mirkwood, it's a possibility. I mean, I don't know. I don't. I mean, think about some of the de-aging that they did to Orlando Bloom in The Hobbit. Didn't look fantastic. So I'm not exactly sure what to think here. It's going to be interesting though. It's going to be interesting to see where they play with that timing, and I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see very, very soon, apparently. So look, like I said, I'm by no means an expert here. If I got something wrong, please let me know in the comment section. I would love to hear your thoughts on what you think about them doing this. How could it screw with the legacy of Lord of the Rings? Do you like the idea? Do you hate the idea? I'd love to hear. What are your casting? You know, what are your casting ideas? Let's talk about it, because I mean, we've got a couple years to stew on this one, but it is fun to think about. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.